Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, it's a mailbag episode. We're taking your questions about the Dodgers pitching staff, trade deadline ideas, Max Muncy's struggles, and a bunch of other stuff. That's what's on tap. So let's get Locked On Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, Dodger fans, this is Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. Remember, this show is free and available on all podcast platforms and on YouTube simply by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Or even better, go ahead and subscribe wherever you're watching or listening right now. Then you can be an everydayer just like we are. If this is your first time with us, I am Jeff Snider. My co-host is Vince Samperio, although it's just me today. Vince and I are both lifelong Dodger fans, just like you are. We've also both spent time covering the Dodgers in the press box and the locker room. So we're not quite insiders, but we bring you the smart fans perspective on our boys in blue every weekday morning. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. And with that said, let's jump right into it. It is just me today. Vince is heading to Vegas, actually. He is a fan of the Las Vegas Golden Knights, the hockey team. Who knew? Some people like other sports. And for Vince, he has chosen the Knights as his hockey team, and he is heading to Vegas to, I guess they're playing in a big hockey game or something. I don't know. So he's there. I am in California. As you can probably tell, I don't have well, if you're watching, if you're listening, you probably can't tell. I don't know if it sounds any different, but I don't have my usual backdrop because I am at my parents' house, and I don't really have a usual backdrop here. I think this is my first time recording from this particular angle here at my parents' house, but I am down here with my sons. It's my youngest son is turning 12 years old this week. We are going to celebrate at Dodger Stadium on Wednesday, catching a game, watching Clayton Kershaw pitch. That'll be fun. And so, yeah, we thought we'd come down, spend a week with the grandparents, and that's why I'm here. And hopefully if you remember, everydayers will remember that when I was here last month, I had some audio issues with the podcast, and I've checked. I bought this new headset mic. I think everything should be good. So with that all out of the way, let's jump into the questions. And one of the things that I have with this setup, I will be reading the questions off my handy dandy phone. And I'm using my laptop's built-in webcam, so that's why the video quality might not be quite as high as always, but hopefully the audio sounds good, and that's what really matters, because let's face it, any video with me on it isn't going to look that great anyway, but here we are. And let's jump right into the questions. Our buddy Brandon Johnson at BrandonJohn442. I love Brandon. Great guy, great listener, always has great questions for us, going back to the Scully Avenue podcast days. Brandon, let me know, how long have you been listening? As far as I know, you're one of our first listeners to our old podcast, and so appreciate you. But Brandon asks, he says the MLB trade value website has Diego Cartaya and Shohei Ohtani basically even. What are your thoughts on that trade, 1-for-1? And if you're not familiar with this trade values website, you can plug in a proposed trade, and it tells you who wins that trade. Who is that an even trade? And it's all based on projected future value. And now the reason that Ohtani and Cartaya would be roughly even though Ohtani is a proven superstar and Cartaya is a double-A catcher, is because Ohtani has 3 months left on his contract, and Cartaya has 6 years of team control coming up. And so the fact that it has them roughly even, and I'm taking Brandon's word for that. I'm not double checking him, but I don't see any reason for Brandon to lie to me about that. So if it has them roughly even, that means that that website expects Ohtani's projected value in the next 3 months to be roughly the same as Cartaya's over 6 years that the Dodgers have team control. And maybe not quite exactly that, because I assume that hasn't ruled out the possibility of Ohtani re-signing with the Angels. I do think that there would be more Ohtani value for the Dodgers than for the Angels, simply because I think the Dodgers would have a better chance of re-signing Ohtani. Now, trades, you don't really factor that in. If you trade for Shohei Ohtani, you are trading for 3 months of Ohtani, and then maybe kind of you have the head start of recruiting him to sign long term. But if you look at who the Dodgers have traded for at the trade deadline in the past, just in the last 5 years or so, you got Yu Darvish, you got Manny Machado, you got Max Scherzer, you got Trey Turner. None of those guys stayed with the Dodgers when they hit free agency. They all moved on to bigger and better deals. A lot of that was, the Dodgers' choice. The Dodgers didn't, Darvish. I think they would have liked to add Darvish back, but obviously that was sullied by the events of the 2017 World Series, which we found out later weren't all his fault. And then Machado, I think the Dodgers probably didn't even make an offer to Machado. Definitely not a huge offer to Machado. And so, hey, Ryan, come here. Oh, I thought that was my son behind me. It was my sister. So they haven't necessarily, they didn't make a big offer to Machado. Scherzer, I think the Dodgers would have liked to have them on their deal, but he got a big deal. All this stuff, it was all there's underlying circumstances why they didn't re-sign those guys. But when it comes to Ohtani, I think the Dodgers would love to have Ohtani. And, I've said before, I'm dubious that he's going to get as big a contract as everybody's saying. I don't think he's going to get $500 million simply because I think he will get $50 million a year or 10 years. I don't think he'll get both. And so if the price is reasonably right, I think the Dodgers would love to have him. And so having that head start on recruiting him, showing what it's like to play for a winner, all that stuff, there could be value there. So going back to Brandon's question, what do I think about a 1-to-1 trade Ohtani for Cartaya? It would hurt for sure. I think I would do it. I don't think the Angels would. I think if the Angels are going to trade Ohtani, they're going to want to get a huge haul. And I don't think, Cartaya is, roughly a top 10 prospect in baseball, top 15, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't think that they are going to make that trade just for one guy. I think they'd want to get a haul. And so I think this is one of those trades that maybe looks good on paper, but it would never happen. I don't even know I assume the Dodgers would do that. If the Angels called and said, we'll give you Ohtani for Cartaya, I think the Dodgers would probably do that. Between Will Smith and Dalton Rushing, not that, Diego Cartaya is still a huge prospect, and I don't think the Dodgers want to trade him. We actually have a question coming up later about untouchable prospects, and I don't think they want to trade Cartaya, but Ohtani is the kind of guy that you consider trading guys you don't want to trade for. So, that's my thoughts on that one, on a 1-to-1 deal. Next question. Actually, let's take a break real quick. I'll get to more questions when I come back. I want to thank you all for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning, and please continue to keep it Locked On Dodgers. This episode is brought to you by Gametime. As I mentioned, I am down here in California to go to a Dodger game, and so I was looking for tickets, and I looked on, I'm not going to name the other ones, I guess, but I looked on basically all the places where you can get Dodger tickets. I looked for them, and I was pretty impressed. Gametime they have the best deals, and it's not just they actually guarantee the best deals. If you find a ticket in the same section and row for less money, they will refund you the difference plus 10% of the difference. 110% of the difference they will refund. And so really you can't go wrong. And it's a really cool little app. Just download the Gametime app. You can see views from your seats. You can see all the tickets available. You can search by map. You can search by price. There's a lot of different ways to do it. And last minute deals, you can find them. If you could be driving to the game and say, when I get to the parking lot, I will find a ticket, and Gametime will find you a ticket. It's a great way to buy tickets. And so you don't have to plan months in advance. You can just fly by the seat of your pants and have fun doing it and know that you're going to get the best deal because it's guaranteed. So snag the tickets without the stress with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, I am back. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. If you're watching on YouTube, love to hear your thoughts in the YouTube comment section. I'm going to be answering several of your questions. Love to hear if you agree, disagree. If you disagree, I'd love to hear why. Sometimes people just say you're wrong or, the opposite of what I said. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I am not opposed to learning new things. And so I'd love to hear that. Also want to remind you, if you can't catch today's series opener against the White Sox on TV, you can always catch it on Sirius XM or the SXM app. Just launch the SXM app and search for Dodgers, and you can listen to it there, the hometown radio feed. You can also listen to this podcast on the SXM app. Just search for Locked On Dodgers. With that said, let's jump it back into our mailbag and let's see what we've got in the next question. At Dodgers Dan 81, he asked, do Walker Buehler and Dustin May have a significant role leading up to the playoff push? Do we expect them to both be ready to go 5+ innings? And then along that same line, Gallegos at Gallegos_fam, that is his new Twitter handle after the old one got banned. He says it's a long way out, but just for fun, how do you see our playoff rotation come October 1 through 4 starters? I'm lumping those together because they are related questions. Obviously, if Walker Buehler and Dustin May were both ready, they would both be serious candidates for the rotation if they were both ready to go 5 or 6 innings. I don't see that happening with Walker Buehler. Buehler wants to be back. If Buehler gets back this season at all, I will view it as a bonus. I just can't see Buehler ready to contribute in a starting role. Now, Buehler, with his arm and everything, his bulldog mentality, all of that stuff, he could be very, very valuable in the bullpen. I don't expect to see him starting, but it wouldn't shock me if he played a big role on this team in October as a guy who could pitch an inning or two out of the bullpen, throwing 100 miles an hour and with other pitches and everything. He could be very effective out of the bullpen as he's building his way back to being back in the rotation next year. As for Dustin May, I don't really have any idea what to expect because I don't think any of us really have any idea. I assume the Dodgers have a better idea than I do, but even that, I think there's a lot of questions about Dustin May's future, not his long-term future. I think his 2023 future, it wouldn't surprise me if he ends up being in the same boat as Buehler, not back until the last month of the season, not time to build up to be a real starter. And so, maybe they do, as a 4th starter, go with a piggyback of Buehler and May, 3 innings each. But I think maybe we might end up seeing both of them out of the bullpen in October because they both have stuff that could definitely play up in a shorter stint. But Buehler, that's definitely the role I expect. May, I'm still hoping for him to get back and be able to contribute as a starter. I just don't have any idea what to expect, So to Gallegos' question, as far as the actual postseason rotation, obviously Kershaw, I'm not going to put these in order. I think Kershaw and Julio are pretty much locked for the postseason rotation if they're healthy. All of this, every question about Dodgers pitching has to have an if they're healthy clause. I think they're locked for it. I think Bobby Miller has definitely played himself into that role. And then the 4th starter, it's got to be Tony Gonsolin, I would think right now, assuming that Gonsolin is healthy, assuming that he's being effective. That's what I would expect right now. Kershaw, Julio, Miller, and Gonsolin as the 4 starters. You only need 4 starters in the postseason. And then you've got other options for guys to pitch out of the bullpen or, be available in case of injury, all that stuff. But that's kind of what I am expecting right now. I mean, not Gavin Stone. I don't know why I get these names mixed up. Michael Grove. Grove stuff, it's looked really good. He could be a guy who plays up out of the bullpen. They could, with all the issues, and maybe this leads into the next question because I'm just going to jump into this next question. Kevin at BlueGoon82, he says the bullpen is killing us. Given how much Andrew Friedman dislikes overpaying for relief pitchers at the deadline, do you think prospects like Landon Knack, Hurt, or Sheehan can give us? I can't remember Kyle Hurt or Emmett Sheehan can give us a boost in the bullpen after the All-Star break. Let's just assume they aren't needed in the rotation as well. And then Kevin throws in, I hate our pitching. And so I could see a lot of guys who are currently starting pitchers playing a role in the Dodgers bullpen late this season and into the postseason, whether it's Dustin May or Walker Buehler or Michael Grove or, some of these double-A guys that Kevin mentions. And the Dodgers also, I mean, the relief pitchers they have good stuff. Brusdar Graterol has been very, very good at times. Caleb Ferguson has even been very good at times. I'm nervous about Caleb Ferguson right now. He's been bad several outings in a row. I don't know if it's just a break that he needs and a phantom IL and a rehab stint or whatever. But I'm hopeful about him. Alex Vesia, he's looked better since he came back. There's options there. There's guys who could potentially turn it on. And we saw last year, there were several guys, Graterol included, who struggled early in the season and then were really, really good in the last part of the season. So that could happen. Obviously Evan Phillips has been mostly very good this year, and I expect that to continue. But yeah, I could see some starters, whether it's guys who are currently in the majors or in AAA. The thing I would caution about with the AA guys, and maybe this actually leads into another question. So I guess I'm just going to keep segueing from one question to another before I've answered an entire question. Not Dave Roberts on Twitter asks, what other Dodger prospects can we expect to make their debuts this year? Which pitcher or pitchers could make the biggest impact on this year's Dodger team? And then he clarified he specifically meant from the AA roster, because Vince and I talked a week or two ago about how good that AA pitching staff has been. Most of them have been outstanding, the starting pitchers in AA right now. And so it has people understandably excited. A couple of them have been promoted. I know Landon Nat got promoted. I think one other one got promoted to AAA. So understandably, people are excited. And for me, I feel like we need to take a little bit of a grain of salt or a step back and remember that Gavin Stone last year was what these guys are. He dominated in high A, he dominated in AA, and he dominated in AAA. And then this year in the major leagues, he has really, really struggled. And that doesn't mean these guys would too, but it's really important to remember that AA success, any minor league success doesn't guarantee success in the big leagues. AA success definitely doesn't guarantee success in the big leagues, especially this year. And so I would be very surprised if we see any of these AA starters pitching out of the bullpen for the Dodgers this year, just because, I mean, they're starters and there's no need to rush them. So if they get called up, it'll be because we need them as starters. And, I guess I could see maybe one path would be somebody like Landon Knack gets called up because the Dodgers need a starter and he pitches really well. And then, he's on the roster pitching well when the season ends. And so he gets rewarded by getting one of the bullpen spots on the postseason roster. I could see something like that, I guess. But even that, like, I don't know if Knack has the stuff that's going to play up out of the bullpen. I know, maybe a couple of the other guys, Nick Frasso could definitely be a guy whose stuff could play up out of the bullpen. I guess realistically, if one of those AA starters, those six guys we've talked about, was going to be in the big league bullpen this year or this postseason, I would probably guess Nick Frasso, just because he does throw 100 miles an hour. Some people do think he is more of a future reliever than a starter. A lot of reasons it could be him. But overall, I would expect that the Dodgers, either guys who are currently on the staff, some combination probably, guys who are currently on the staff in the bullpen getting better, guys like Buehler and or May coming back and pitching out of the bullpen, and Michael Grove, guys like that, or the Dodgers actually do trade for a bullpen piece at the trade deadline, whether it is a unheralded name, kind of the Tony Cingrani type of trade that they've done in the past where it doesn't cost them a whole lot of prospect capital, or it's part of a bigger trade. If they did a Dylan Cease trade and also got, a White Sox reliever, Liam Hendriks' name has been thrown around, although he went on the IL with elbow issues. So maybe that's another question. I've seen thoughts about a Marcus Stroman and Mark Leiter Jr. trade. So it would be a starter and a reliever coming from the Cubs, things like that. I can see the Dodgers in a part of a bigger trade pulling in a reliever that way. I think it's going to be some combination of those things. All right. I guess that was three questions rolled into one. Hopefully I answered them all okay. Anyway, going to take one more break and get back to the rest of your questions, or as many as I can anyway. So thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen every weekday morning. and please continue to keep it Locked On Dodgers. All right, I am back. I want to thank you again for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Reminder, you could be an everydayer. It's a fun club to be in, and all you got to do, just listen every day or watch every day or do both. Listen on your way to work and then turn it on YouTube on your computer when you get to work, and then listen again on your way home in a different app, or on a different phone. It's just whatever you got to do. You could be a triple everydayer. That's not a hashtag, but it could be. Also want to remind you, if you want to listen to the Dodgers hometown radio broadcast, you can do that wherever you are on Sirius XM or the SXM app. Just launch the SXM app and search for Dodgers. And I want to thank all of you for listening with us every day. It really does mean a lot to us. And let's jump into a couple more questions. I've got one more question from Kevin at Blue Goon 82. He sent in a couple. I appreciate that. He says, Max Muncy appears to be a 3 true outcomes type of hitter now. That has value, but it's very frustrating to watch on a daily basis. Do you think that this is who he is now, or can he get back to the good overall hitter he was a few seasons ago? And 3 true outcomes, if you're not familiar with the concept, the 3 true outcomes is the nickname for the things that theoretically are out of the defense's control. So it's a pure pitcher hitter battle, and those are home runs, walks, and strikeouts. Those are the 3 true outcomes where the defense never touches the ball. And Max Muncy, interestingly, his 3 true outcomes percentage actually isn't that much higher than it was. I'm comparing it to 2018 because that was his best season, probably. Or he was very, very good in 2018. That was his best season with the Dodgers. And his 3 true outcomes percentages are almost identical. 2018 home run percentage 7.3%. This year 0.2. 2018 strikeout percentage 27.2. This year 27.9. Slightly higher strikeout percentage. And 2018 walk percentage 16.4. This year 15.5. So a little bit lower walk percentage. So actually the overall 3 true outcomes percentage is a tiny bit lower than 2018. Almost identical, slightly more strikeouts, slightly fewer walks, but pretty darn identical. The difference is that he's not getting singles. In 2018, let's see, he had 35 homers, 17 doubles, 2 triples. That's a total of 54. So he had 50 singles. This year, he has 17 singles out of 40 hits. And so 50 out of 104 is almost even that. I mean, it's not that much different. That I don't know what, because he batted 263 in 2018. This year he's batting 191. And it's a weird, he's striking out a little more, but really not that much more. But he's not getting those singles. And when I look at the percentages, actually the one big difference I do see is his line drive percentage is way down. Because you've got, I guess doubles too in 2018. Sorry, I just distracted myself. Those 17 doubles are a big difference. I guess that's the big difference. The singles are actually a similar rate. It's the doubles that's a hugely different rate. And that's because of the line drives. In 2018, his line drive percentage was 25.6. This year, it's 15.7. And almost all of those line drives have been traded for fly balls. His ground ball percentage is a little bit lower. His fly ball percentage is way up, 33.5% in 2018, 39.3% this year. So that he's traded line drives for fly balls. And if you're hitting the ball 400 feet, that's not that big a deal. But if you're, so he's getting a lot of flyouts. I do think Max Muncy's had some bad luck. I know Vince talked about Muncy yesterday. I think if I had been on the episode yesterday, Vince and I might have had a little bit of an argument because Max Muncy had 4 hits stolen from him in this weekend series that they just finished against the Phillies. If he had those 4 hits, Dodgers win a couple more games, and his weekend looks great. And he was legitimately robbed 4 times. And so, getting robbed happens sometimes. But for me, my takeaway about Muncy this weekend was he might be getting ready to break out because he's hitting the ball hard. I do think that he needs to hit more line drives, and I think he's going to get there. But it's, so I don't think it's a 3 true outcomes thing. Like Kevin said, I think we just noticed the 3 true outcomes when the non-true outcomes are outs instead of hits. And that's really what we're looking at here is he's hitting more flyouts. Balls that were singles or doubles in 2018 are flyouts this year. And that's the big difference. And yeah, he's always going to strike out a little more than we want him to. He's always going to walk a lot. He's going to hit a lot of home runs. But yeah, I think we need some more line drives to get more of those doubles. That's the big thing that he's missing. Let's see what else we have. At LAD, please win on Twitter. Asks, which prospects do you see as untouchable in trades at the deadline? Nobody's untouchable. I mentioned the Diego Cartaya for Shohei Ohtani idea. Cartaya is close to untouchable, but nobody's untouchable. Bobby Miller is technically still a prospect, even though he's pitching in the big leagues right now. Bobby Miller is untouchable now because what the Dodgers need is pitching, and Bobby Miller is an outstanding major league pitcher right now. The Dodgers are not going to trade Bobby Miller. He is untouchable. As far as prospects who are currently in the minor leagues, though, I don't think there's anybody. I think Cartaya is the closest to untouchable, but also maybe the most likely to get traded because the Dodgers need to make a huge impact at the trade deadline, and that might take Cartaya if they are going to go after a Corbin Burns type or obviously Shohei Ohtani, somebody who's going to make a huge impact like that. I think that Cartaya might have to be a part of that package, and so he's both almost untouchable and somewhat likely to be traded, in my opinion. Other than that, everybody else, it's like we're not going to know until years down the road whether they traded away another Yordan Alvarez or Pedro Martinez or whichever PTSD-inducing Dodgers trade you want to think about. But the fact is, Dodgers are going to have to trade some prospects this trade deadline if they're going to fill the needs that they need to fill, and that'll come down to a lot who's available because right now, teams aren't trading yet. They're not giving up on the seasons yet. I just watched the Angels beat the Rangers tonight. I was rooting for the Rangers just so that Angels would be more likely to trade Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout to the Dodgers for like Austin Barnes and Trace Thompson or something. It didn't happen. Probably not going to happen, but we'll see who's available, and that will help determine who is being traded. But Bobby Miller is currently the only untouchable prospect the Dodgers have, in my opinion. I don't know if I got to everything. I got to a bunch. I hope that's good enough for you guys. Appreciate it. Your questions are awesome. We always get great questions for you guys. Appreciate you all listening every day. If you're not an everydayer, we'd love if you join that everydayer club. All you got to do is watch or listen every day. Also want to remind you again, you can catch the Dodgers Hometown Radio broadcast on SiriusXM or the SXM app just by searching for Dodgers. You can also catch this podcast on the SXM app. Listen to it on the SXM app on your way home from work. So podcast app on the way to work, YouTube at work, SXM app on the way home by searching for Locked On Dodgers. Everybody wins, especially me. You can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Locked On Dodgers. Vince is on Twitter at VinceSense91. I'm on Twitter at Snydog, and the DMs are open in all of those places. Our email address is lockedondodgers@gmail.com, and our phone number for voicemails or text messages is 323-863-LOCK 5625. We are here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us. When you get in your car or sit on your couch, tell your smart device to play podcast Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. We'll talk to you tomorrow.